started over on ITV2, one of Britain's best-loved comedians looks back on his career so far and returns home to where it all began. Frank Skinner on Frank Skinner. Here on ITV1, the latest news with Nicholas Owen.
Iraqis prepare as more anti-war critics here speak out. The last hurrah, Boxing Day hunts meet before the law changes. And oh, lucky Jack, the man with the biggest lottery win ever.
The ITV News with Nicholas Owen.
Good evening. The government is under more pressure tonight to pull back from the brink of a war against Iraq. Political and religious leaders have called on the Prime Minister not to drift into military conflict. The Liberal Democrats say a strike against Baghdad will only trigger more terrorist attacks. Today, the Iraqis said 3 civilians had died in a British and American bombing raid in the south of the country. Libby Vina reports.
This is where the Iraqis say the bombs from British and American warplanes patrolling the no-fly zone landed, killing 3 people. They claim a mosque stood here. The US say it was a military command centre. The raid followed another day of inspections by UN officials looking for Saddam's hidden weapons and renewed calls from politicians and church leaders here for Tony Blair to step back from the brink and allow the inspectors to complete their work.
When preparations for war are as extensive as they are now, then it's easy to drift from preparing for war into war itself. I think it's necessary to take every possible alternative option.
Meanwhile, the priest whose church the Blairs attended near Chequers yesterday added his voice to those urging caution against being dragged into war.
What one fears is that it moves, you easily get caught up in your rhetoric and it becomes a sort of actual warfare which could be avoided.
In Baghdad, food rations appear to have been eased so ordinary people can build up stores at home. The Iraqis say they are now ready for war, a senior member of Saddam Hussein's government warning that casualties would be heavy on both sides.
We have taken measurements to defend our country, our land, and it will not be a picnic to Iraq.
The Americans seem ready too, but the presence of their aircraft carrier USS Truman in Marseille tonight prompted angry protests from anti-war campaigners. They urged Europe's leaders to think again about being drawn into a second war with Iraq. Libby Vina, ITV News.
There were increasing signs today that North Korea is pressing ahead with its efforts to develop its nuclear potential. Fresh fuel has been moved to a reactor capable of producing plutonium for nuclear weapons. The North Korean government insists the move is simply part of plans to generate electricity, but Washington has condemned it as a provocation. Thousands of people turned out today for traditional Boxing Day hunts amid uncertainty about the future of blood sports. Under new laws likely to be introduced in England and Wales in the spring, stag hunting and hare coursing will be banned and fox hunting restricted. Both opponents and supporters of hunting say the proposals are a fudge. From Buckinghamshire, Philip Ray-Smith reports.
It's a scene that echoes through the centuries, the Whaddon Chase foxhounds meeting ahead of the traditional Boxing Day hunt. But in recent years, admiring locals have been joined by anti-hunt protesters who don't like what happens next.
A lot of the people actually in the square today, if they were to come out with us afterwards and monitor the hunt with us and see what goes on during the hunt, they would never come to the market square again. This is the sanitised side of it.
The hunt's supporters claim the majority of people simply want the sport regulated.
I've no doubt whatsoever that the scene we see now, a lot of country people giving support to their local pack, is going to go on next year, the year after, and for many years to come. And so it should. This is a force for good in the countryside. It brings people together, and it's also good for the wildlife.
Not if you're a fox, protesters say, and it seems these days most politicians agree with them. Anti-hunting demonstrations have become as much a tradition of Boxing Day as the hunt itself, but the government wants to severely limit hunting with hounds. Backbench Labour MPs, if they get their way, want to see it banned completely. 10 days ago, Hunt supporters attempted to storm Parliament as MPs debated the hunting bill. As the bill stands now, hunts will be banned unless they pass a cruelty test and are needed for pest control. But the sheer number of Labour backbenchers means they're likely to force a complete ban, and the Wadden Chase hunt, certainly in its current form, may not last much longer. Philip Ray-Smith, ITV News, Buckinghamshire.
Now, if you're addicted to bargain hunting, you may still be recovering from a long, hard day at the shops. Thousands of people joined the scrums at shopping centres around the country on the first day of the winter sales. Some were up before dawn to get to the front of the queues. Bernard Smith joined the throng at Manchester's Trafford Centre.
Barely an hour into the Boxing Day sales and the car parks were full, the tailbacks worsening.
Sorry, we've got a crowd problem out here and inside. We need to control it somehow.
Today was not for the faint-hearted, but for the 100,000 or so shoppers who've passed through the Trafford Centre in Manchester, the pushing, shoving, queuing and general hassle are worth it in pursuit of those all-important bargains.
We stayed in all yesterday, had a quiet family Christmas turkey, so we got up early this morning, got caught in the traffic coming in, but we managed to find car space.
We'll come every year. Every year on Boxing Day we come.
Are you not exhausted after the run-up to Christmas Day?
No, not at all. Not when you're shopping.
Everything's half price, everything half price. So I don't know why people buy before Christmas.
This mall was the only one in Britain to open fully today, but with takings here expected to hit the £10 million mark, it's a move Britain's other shopping centres may eventually find impossible to resist. It seems we are a nation of shopping addicts, and yesterday's enforced break was as much as some could cope with.
I think they've obviously got a lot of withdrawal symptoms from the centre. They're certainly making up for not being able to shop yesterday.
Designer clothes and electrical goods have so far been the most popular bargains. This is only a taste of what's to come. Between now and the end of January, Britain's shoppers will be clogging the malls, spending some £12 billion on sale bargains and helping to boost the flagging profits of Britain's high street stores. Bernard Smith, ITV News, Manchester.
Millions of Americans are tonight recovering from some of the most severe snowstorms the country has ever seen. 3 feet of snow fell in parts of the northeast, with New York City seeing its first white Christmas for over 30 years. Many flights were delayed or cancelled, and thousands of homes are still without electricity. The Queen has rounded off her Golden Jubilee year by proving to be a hit with television viewers. Her annual Christmas message was watched by 9.3 million people, up by around 600,000 from last year. However, that's still considerably less than her performance in 1987, when she attracted an audience of 28 million. Football, and the Everton teenager Wayne Rooney's action-packed first Premiership season took another twist this afternoon. The 17-year-old faces a 3-match ban after being sent off for what was described as a horror tackle in Everton's game at Birmingham. You can see for yourself what happened in ITV1's Premiership programme, which follows this bulletin. In Scotland, Rangers suffered their first defeat of the season, going down 1-0 to bottom of the league Motherwell. They now lead Celtic by just 1 point. In the English First Division tonight, Ipswich staged a dramatic late comeback to put the brakes on second-place Leicester City's run of good form. Felicity Barr watched the action.
Having lost just once at home this season, Leicester had reason to feel confident. And luck appeared to be on their side when they were awarded a controversial penalty in the second half. Ipswich weren't alone in wondering what offence had been committed. But the referee ruled there had been pushing inside the area. Paul Dickoff's spot kick was clear enough, and Leicester looked to have closed the gap on leaders Portsmouth to 1 point. But Ipswich then pulled off a remarkable comeback. Darren Ambrose's free kick was superbly steered into the net by Thomas Gardso for the equaliser. And with just minutes to go, Ambrose claimed a goal for himself to give Ipswich all 3 points. Felicity Barr, ITV News.
Cricket, the 4th Ashes Test resumes in just over an hour, with Australia once again in a commanding position. England will need quick wickets to have any chance of getting a result. Justin Langer resumes on 146 not out. The Aussies are 356 for 3. And finally, you could say Father Christmas came a day late to an American businessman from the tiny town of Hurricane in West Virginia, but it was worth it. Jack Whittaker has become the world's biggest lottery winner after scooping a jackpot worth £200 million. He says it won't change his life, but he might buy a helicopter. Ruth Hockey has the story.
We want to present to you this check for $314 million, $900,000.
It's the biggest ever lottery prize claimed by a single ticket holder, but the lucky recipient seemed remarkably cool as he was presented with his astronomical win.
I just want to thank God for letting me pick the right numbers or letting the machine pick the right numbers for me, and I want to say thanks to all my family that believes in me and everything. And
the 55-year-old construction company boss from West Virginia bought $100 worth of tickets from his local gas station 3 days ago. The huge jackpot drew in thousands of hopeful punters. The draw had the whole country glued to their TV screens last night, but at first Mr. Whittaker wasn't at all sure he'd won. He's donating a good chunk of the money to the church, but also has a few other plans.
I've been that close to buying me a helicopter for a couple of years, and I'll probably buy the helicopter now.
And as the real cheque isn't available yet, the family have been given a $10 million advance, just to be getting on with. Ruth Hockey, ITV News.
That's it. The ITV News channel continues, of course, and from me and the Boxing Day team here, goodbye.
ITV National Weather, sponsored by PowerGen. PowerGen, power in good hands.
Hello, good evening. Well, straight away, let's deal with tonight. There's a lot of rain around. Two main bands of rain, one there across Scotland, another down in the south. That's heading northwards all the while and leading to quite tricky driving conditions. Extra care needed on those roads. At least in compensation, temperatures are mild. Into tomorrow then for Scotland and Northern Ireland, dull, wet day. Only light winds though. Further south, some hefty showers around, pushing eastwards all the while on rather blustery winds. Temperatures still mild and seasonally mild. Now let's take a very quick look ahead then. And on Saturday, we are expecting a much better day, brighter, some glimmers of sunshine. It is only a brief respite, already with weather fronts on the scene. Come Sunday, well, there'll be wet and windy weather around and plenty of it. That's all from me.
PowerGen, power in good hands.